And we're live. Cool. So here we are with Tin, an animator that is like a one-man band, pretty much, right?
One
So
man army.
one in army, exactly. So Tin has been like animating amazing things, and he was pretty much the only animator at Hades, working on the game Hades, which I have been playing a lot as of late. And since I played it, just like everyone else, was like amazed by the game, amazed by the animations, and how it all
Right.
looks, and it's an amazing game. So since then, I've been wanting to actually speak with Tin. Thanks very much for commenting on my tweets, and I think this is overdue now. So it was time to bring you on board, have an interview, and ask about your journey as an animator.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here, Harvey. I mean, like, it's a huge honor. You are an inspiration. Like, I appreciate you and what you're doing. It's been good. Like, I've gone through your video, and I was like, man, I should have saw some of those videos earlier in my career, but
Yeah,
it is what it is. So I went through the stuff you were talking about, and it's really hit me. I'm like, oh yeah, he's right. He's onto it. So
thanks,
it's really
man.
great stuff.
Thank you very much. I highly appreciate it. So, like as I mentioned behind, like when we're talking behind the scenes, this is just a conversation about for both of us to have and just chill out and have fun. But like, I'm actually really interested in knowing about your journey, your journey to here, because before you actually started working in your current job, you were working in mobile games and other things, but perhaps we can start by just talking about your passion for animation, where did it all started, and how do you got here?
Yeah, so I kind of warned Harvey earlier. This is kind of like a big question,
Yeah.
and I have a story for it. So
Mm,
I was a 2D puppet animator when I started, and I
mm,
became a 3D animator now. But the reason why I want to share the story is that I want to share my experience of going through challenges and obstacles that get to me to where I am today.
yep.
Kind of, let others know where you are now doesn't mean this is where you will always be in the future.
Hmm.
There's always going to be someone who has worse than you do. But this was my experience.
100%.
So let's start off how I got to college and why.
Hmm.
So I had all kind of job growing up, right? And the first one, I was 15 and a half, working at McDonald's. I know Harvey
Yes.
worked at
I
McDonald's.
worked at McDonald's as well.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I made enough money to buy a lot of games, but that's
Yeah.
that's how that's how money was spent back then, right? So fast forward to my adulthood, right? In that particular year, a lot of stuff was happening, and I was working in this warehouse. So this job, I would clock in at 3:30 in the afternoon,
Hmm.
and I'll clock out at 12 a.m. or 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning if there's
Wow.
overtime.
Yeah.
So think of something as Costco.
Yeah.
So it's a huge, giant warehouse, lots of aisles, huge shelf with food products, and there are three different areas: a dry section, a fridge section, and a freezer section.
Hmm.
And you start in the dry section and you graduate if you do well, right?
Right.
Once you've done all of them, you can decide where you want to stay the rest of your time here. So you have this electric pallet jack. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those. It can carry two wooden pallets.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, yeah, it had this T-shaped handle.
The things
It's
that you put.
very
Yeah.
difficult. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was it's very weird. It's not like a wheel where you control things really easily. It's
Yeah.
not like a joystick, right? It's very strange. But anyway, you wear a gadget on your forearm with a clicker on between your thumb and your index finger, and that's how you scan orders, right? So the
Hmm.
orders of the day will show up on your gadget, and let's say your first order has 300 items, and sometimes it
Okay.
can go up to like thousands of items, right? And you have 20 minutes to put this together and bring them to the appropriate trailers, shrink
Wow.
wrap and secure, so it will get on to the delivery route. So this is
Yeah.
the food delivery kind of warehouse. Um, so the dry product can be like flours, bags of rice and canned foods, boxes of cereals, whatnot. And you being time, you're going pretty fast. People have actually gotten hurt jumping off in front of the pallets
Yeah.
jack because they're trying to get stuff really fast, right?
Right.
So they fill up the order, and sometimes I would lift like two 50-pound bags of products. Bad
And
idea.
you have to do it in a hurry as well, right? Because you're
Yeah, I have to
on a
do it in a
timer.
hurry
Yeah.
because you're on a timer. So what happened is at the end of the week, they'll average you your daily performance, which was recorded on this device, right?
Right.
And if you perform consistently below 80%, they'll fire you. They'll let you go.
Wow.
So thanks to a tip from one of the experienced workers there, I figured out the formula to boost my performance, right? So
Yeah.
if you can perform something like 150% on Monday, the rest
Yeah.
of the week you do 80 to 90% to average out 100% by
Right.
Friday, you're good to go. So on a Monday, I did 186%. And
Wow.
my fellow coworker was so shocked. One of them came to me and like, "Yo, how the fuck do you do that? Right? Are you on
Right.
drugs? Can I have some?" I was like, "No, man, I'm not on drug. I mapped out where everything was, right? So I built my palette in a way that maximized my time.
Mm.
Um, and it's like a fight to get a good palette jack too when you first clocked in, you know, because like first come first serve.
Yeah.
So if you came late, and you're gonna get a pretty shitty palette jack, right? So I was doing good. So I graduated to go into the fridge section with like the eggs, the groceries, cold products, and stuff like that. And I was doing
Mm.
well on that. So they moved me to the freezer, and the freezer was hell for me. Like no matter how much warm clothes I was wearing, you know, I have double socks, double gloves, beanies on, I could not stay
Still
warm.
cold.
Yeah,
Wow.
because I was even I'm moving physically
Yeah.
moving a lot, right?
And that
So
was like 8 hours a day.
that's 8 hour plus a day, right? And you know, I had frozen snot,
Yeah.
right? But I was sweating like crazy at the same time. It was very slippery too with all the ice and stuff like that. So in this moment, I questioned my life decision and reflect on where I was heading. You know, I
For
didn't want
sure.
to do this anymore. You know, it wasn't sustainable for the long run. Like I was
Yeah.
physically just tired all the time. I was mentally unhappy.
How
So
long
I
how long do
decided
you do
to
it overall?
almost a year.
Almost
I
a year,
almost
yeah.
lasted a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently, considering how fast I moved to the freezer, that was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I don't know if good or bad, but you know,
Yeah.
so that was how I changed my life course. So fast forward to college, I was learning Flash toward the end of my college year because
Mhm.
at the time, Facebook social game was like huge, right? So all of
Yeah.
them, they like, hey, go learn Flash. You got to learn Flash. That's how you're gonna get in. So a couple months before I graduated, an art director and an HR person from the local social game studio came to give student feedback on the demo reel and stuff. And the director saw potential in my 2D puppet animation. Um, so that was my foot in the door. I started off as an intern. So
Yeah.
shout out to Kim, not Glenn Kim, Glenn
Yeah.
Kim and Martha.
Yeah.
Um, I got to work with my fellow classmate who graduated before me. And though I was an intern, I got to work on the same stuff as the animator because I adapt pretty quickly and I
Yeah.
caught up to what they were doing. It was like one of my fondest memory of working with those people. Uh, so with that job, I learned the lesson of laid off. That was my first laid off as well. I
Right.
think it was like 6 months, 7 months in. And then the same lesson I learned several more times throughout my career. But you know, working from those places got me a job for the next job. And then I also did a bunch of freelance between jobs as well.
Yeah.
So fast forward again, 2017. I was working as a contract 2D animator, and I was seeing like the 2D puppet animation job was just really thinning out to like nothing, right? There's no future for me at that time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They kind of like disappear, right? After a while, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But you know, 3D has always been there,
Yeah.
and I know 3D is going to continue to move me to the future for the long run too. So I decided to quit my job and just pursue it full time. And it was like one of those do or die thing, right? I was like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm gonna quit my job. I know I won't get any more money, but if I can do this in a certain amount of time before my money run out,
Yeah.
and maybe it'll be okay. So after a while, I have enough, like I learned enough, and then I have like some demo reel, and it's like, okay, maybe I can, you know, apply for a job now with this demo reel. No, I failed. I failed that job, that the first 3D test. So I reflect myself again. I decided to look for professionals to learn from because you know you can only learn so much by yourself, right?
Yeah,
You have to look out for a professional who done it before and show you things that you wouldn't, or it would take longer for you to figure it out.
for sure.
So at the time, I saw Richard Lico. You have to interview him. I saw his interview, and like I thought it was so amazing. I immediately drawn to Richard. And the thing what stood out to me was when he was talking about the importance of free time to spend with your family, right? Why he came up with these animation methods to help him work fast and efficient, but still retain the quality. Um, so I signed up for Animate, but he wasn't teaching anymore. And at the time, I have enough, I guess, of a material to kind of skip the workshop one. But on hindsight, I wish I had taken workshop one because there were foundation that I wish I learned more in depth, right? But anyways, I looked for another instructor, and that was Jeremy Collin. Shout out to Jeremy because I learned a lot from him. And then I have a new demo reel. And with a little bit better animation now, right? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go apply for a job. And this time gotta be good. No, I failed again. I didn't get the job. So there's time to reflect again, think about getting a job, doing something else to earn money. So I got my foot in the door as a contract 3D animator. I got to work on some really cool character and did many different types of animation. Without going through the detail, let's just say that the payment was delayed for a long time. So now I'm like negative broke,
just
my
like
girlfriend,
just super broke, right? Owing money.
Super
right?
broke. At this point. And my girlfriend mom had to step in to pay for rent for a few months. And
Wow.
shout out to Fiona. She's my mother-in-law now. Huge thanks for her. So, okay, I have to think about getting another job now to doing something else to earn money. But then, at my darkest hour, my ex-coworker for my first job reached out to me. It's like, hey, man, you want to come in for an interview? And there's a 3D image job at my studio. He saw my portfolio, and he saw that I switched over to 3D animator, and I had a decent demo reel from that job that I wasn't getting paid yet.
Cool.
And so I got that job. And then that job led to the next job, and so on and so forth. So without going more into detail, I'm sorry for going so long.
Oh, no, sorry.
What I want to share is there are always obstacles, hardship, and sometimes things that could bring you down to your knees. But if you keep going with the good attitude, humility, like you said, respect, and there's hope. I really believe in hope, even though sometimes it's hard to have it, especially when you are in the shit, right?
Completely.
And although challenges and obstacles may never stop coming at you, having the tools you learned through your previous experience of hardship to guide you can help you to navigate, right? Reach out. There are people in the community out there who face similar things, who are willing to help. Just remember to be kind, gracious, be respectful. So one of the things that I learned about reaching out to other people is, especially experienced professional, right? They also have shit they got to deal with. They have their own problem. So they may not have the mental space to help you out. But when they do, it means so much because they are taking time out of their day to respond to you, a total stranger, right? To give you advice and to help you out, big or small. It's still time from their daily life, so don't be be thankful, be grateful, be respectful, and be kind. But yeah, that's how I got through all the stuff and got to where I am today.
That is amazing, man. That is really cool. I mean, do you think, like, based on all the ups and downs that you went through, like, all of that experience was actually like super positive for then ultimately working where you are working now and the amount of work that you need to do? Like, does it feel very much like the hardships just made you like tougher, and therefore you can work harder and just go like where other people might not have gone if they had come from university straight off to the job, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Certain life skills certainly can help you with that. And because I was kind of just working hard all the time, that's kind of like what I've known of. There's just like advice to do things smart and not hard, or whatever that advice.
Smart. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. But then if you don't know what it is, how can you do it smartly, right? So you have to like work hard first. You have to work hard first, and then like, okay, now I know the stuff. I can try to do smarter next time.
Yeah, that's completely right, man. And like where does the passion, because I'm guessing like you were not working in games before, and now that you are actually working in games, like does that come from like you having passion for games, or did it just happen that you actually fell into this job and then you loved it?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like a nerd, right? I love
Yeah,
animation going up, WB20 and the apps, the
yeah,
Fox and stuff like that.
yeah,
And I love playing video games too. Back then with a lot of emulators,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you
right?
mean.
Yeah, yeah. So growing up, I was playing a lot of JRPG, really,
Nice.
and then I got into action game, and
Yeah,
the game. I know that this game inspires so many people, but God of War, like
God of War.
literally, yeah. It at the time, when like you see Kratos ripped out enemy limbs and like
Yeah,
brutally finish some of them off and stuff like that. I thought was really cool and
yeah.
inspiring, right? And I was like, man, I wish I can do that.
Yeah,
Uh,
man. This was one of those games that actually like made you feel like a badass when you played, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, for
that
sure.
was even before people thought about like the game feel. Like now is a thing, right? People are always talking about the game feel, like how snappy does it feel? Does it feel good to perform certain actions? If back then there was none of that, and you, for some reason, people didn't quite understand. You felt like a badass when your
Yeah.
Kratos slashing, like throwing chains and stuff and swinging things around. It was
It's
amazing.
kind of crazy because it's so violent for back then,
It's
right?
super violent. Yeah, yeah. Like
But
like
at the same time,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was super violent. It was sexual, and like people were talking about it, controversial, right? Because Kratos at some point, I think it was like God of War 2 or 3. He had two girls, and then like there were people that were
okay.
naked, and people were like, Have you seen about God of War?" And it
I
was
mean,
cool. It was cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a great game. But
Yeah.
you see that stuff in movies too, right?
That's what I mean. It's just because
Yeah,
games was not used to that, right? Like
right.
this is what like when you see the interviews of the creators, they basically like this is just like another medium that you can just express yourself. It's the
I
same
think
thing.
it's that misconception is kind of like oh, cartoon are for kids, but
Yes.
not all cartoons are the same, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the same with video game where we can express creativity and tell
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about parents up to like maybe 20 years ago seeing games as for kids, right? So when a GTA comes along and it's super violent, or a God of War comes along and has like naked people or whatever,
Yeah,
or there's like
yeah,
slash, or there's like a Kratos ripping a head off or something like that, right? Like, oh, well, I don't want my kid playing this anymore.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so God of War then that was one of the games that you actually played a lot, like growing up, and like
Yeah.
games that actually got you into the games industry, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was drawn into combat and action in general, and that was
Yeah,
like the combat and action, right? For
yeah,
back then.
that's right, that's right. That's great, man. So like, I'm really curious to know like how did this tin actually start in supermassive games, right? And you actually kind of like start working on it, and like you get dropped Hades, right? And you're the only animator in there, and you have to actually do a whole bunch of animations.
Right.
Like, obviously, I know that you cannot talk about the intricacies of it all because it's the games industry and there's a lot of secrets. But like, if you can like resume it in a way how you felt and how hard it was to actually work in a game like Hades, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the most challenging thing was being the only animator. But I think because there were experiences I had before,
Yeah,
being in the industry, the mobile industry was just like creating content, right? So you like
yeah,
doing weekly content a lot. So like crunching out
plowing through,
quantity,
right?
right?
Yeah,
It was one of my specialties.
right.
But when I first came in on Hades, I immediately saw like, hey, if I hand key everything, I'm
Yeah,
probably not gonna make it. I'm not gonna be able to like
right.
read everything.
For
So what
sure.
I did was I implemented motion capture into it as well.
Makes sense.
Because I've just recently learned motion capture, and there was like two birds with one stone for me. The first one is I get to create the content enough content for it. The
Yep.
second part is I guess to advance my skill in motion capture.
Makes sense.
Um, and then it worked out. I proved that things are working, and so that's how I approach it.
Yeah. That's great. So I'm guessing you actually took the mocap and you pushed it, right? It was not
Yes.
just like, because
Oh yeah.
everything is so dynamic. And this is actually a great way, that a great question, because something that I actually talk on my channel, and something that people don't quite understand yet, is that at the moment most animators, they see mocap and Henki, they see it is either one or the other. It's basically like
Right.
Nintendo and Sega back in the day, or Apple and Windows, right?
Yeah.
But there is a world where you can actually kind of like get the mocap, even though it's like realistic, and then push the timing so it actually feels very different. It feels almost like Henki, right?
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
the first system that I tried out was very limited, and let's just say the data was some wonky ass data. But,
Very dirty, right?
part
Yeah.
part of learning. So I
Yeah.
learned to use it, the limitation I had, and to actually made it work.
That's great.
And that also advanced my motion capture skill. And the other skill was because I also learned to advance my hand ski skill. So
Mhm.
then to sort of like matching the styles for both of them become
Right.
like the mission. So I think I can get away with some
Yeah.
stuff that you can't tell either the mocap or Henki.
No, you got away with it brilliantly, actually. Yeah, yeah. I thought it
Yeah.
was actually Henki. So even from
Oh,
my
nice.
standpoint, I'm like, wow, this is Henki, because it looks so cool. Like I could maybe understand when he walks and runs, right? Because that looks really cool as well. But when he actually does all because he has such cool weapons as well, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. No,
that stuff looks great.
the walk and run was done by the previous animator. So I basically finished up the 60% when I came in of the
Oh,
game.
okay,
When I came in, probably about 40% was already been done. So I
okay.
came in and add more and then change things around and make
That's cool,
updates and
man.
stuff like that.
That's cool. So overall, on the project itself, so given the fact that it was like award-winning game and all that, this was your first game, right, that you were working on.
That make it
How,
big.
how you know what I'm going with this? How
Yeah.
does it feel to actually come into the industry, into the games industry, right? First game that you work on, only animator, you get dumped with all this work that you need to do. I guess you worked on it for a few years, right?
A year and a half.
A year and a half. Okay. So
Right.
like a year and a half. And then after that, accolades left, right, and center. How does that feel? How does that sit with you?
It still feels a little unreal to me. Sometimes I look back and like, and to me, it's like I ask myself, did I really do that? I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to accept
Yeah.
that fact. Um, you know, uh, but I think one of the things that I need to learn is to. I think you brought this up before. It's like be proud of your work and sort of learn and let go of things and stuff like that,
That's
right?
it, man. Yeah.
And for me to sometimes I would stop and think like, man, I could have done that better. It's like
Oh,
go
I
back
see.
time and do it, blah
I
blah
see.
blah blah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but in general, yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great journey.
And that's another good point, because games are like an interesting medium, because like especially now as a director, I feel like there is so much content, as you saw, right? You just have to actually add so much content to a game. If you're not a AAA studio that has like 500 people and like a team of like a lot of animators, it's very difficult for you to add the content and make it shine
Right.
all the time, right? Because it's not like a movie, a film where you have a narrative and you know where the story goes from A to B to C to D. And then you can make sure that even Pixar and DreamWorks, they have scenes that they can push slightly more and make them shine, because they know that
Yeah.
those beats are really important for the story. So they like, give this to the good animator and give this to the apprentice, right?
Yeah.
For us in games, doesn't really exist that. You just, it's a constant like journey, right?
For sure.
So it's almost like some content is really good, some content is not so good because of time or a gazillion different reasons. But
Yeah.
whatever it is, and then you put it out there, and then you just hope that everything is fine and people don't notice, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
learned this from one of my boss, Gavin. It's like you look for the big bang or the buck.
yeah.
Big bang, big buck. Wait, what is that word?
The best bang for the buck, I think.
Bang for the buck.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
think that's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
so I try to look for like, okay, with this animation, I can spend more time on it. With this animation, I can spend less time on it,
Yeah.
and I kind of have that mindset all the
That's
time.
great. That's really
You
cool,
know,
man. That's really cool. Yeah, because like it's an interesting thing. And so another question that I have is like I'm actually like fascinated by the studio that you work for. It's really, really cool. I think there's something to be said about actually working on a AAA studio and then working in an indie studio. And I think you guys are kind of in between the two at the moment, which is great. There's not many
yeah,
studios like that, so I highly appreciate that. So given that you guys have only a nucleus of people and all that stuff, how did it felt to you to be an animator in a project like that? Do you felt like supported? Do you felt like really good? Do you felt like you were part of something that was going to be big in the end? If you can
yeah.
comment on that.
Definitely. I mean, everybody at Supergiants are amazing, very accommodating, and I think patient too to give me time to learn and to explore stuff
Yeah,
and to like listen. If I have like proposal that can enhance the workflows and
that's great.
pipeline and stuff
Yeah,
like that. I mean, this is like the first studio that gave me a paid test, right? And like in my 10
that's
years,
right.
I've never had a pay test,
A pay
so I
test. That's great,
super
man.
super appreciate it for
That's
sure,
great.
right?
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Like that's when you know that studios appreciate you, right? When
Yeah,
people
yeah,
actually were like, people have to take time off work in order to actually do these tests. And
yeah.
I've done a fair few as well. And when you do like a lot of work for a test, and then they say, no, not really, uh, it hurts every single time,
Yeah, I
right?
definitely understand that for sure.
It's horrible. It's horrible. I had to do like just something quickly. I actually had to do. I never mentioned this in my channel, but I had to do a test for a studio when I started, and they asked me to do it in Maya, and it was for these games called Buzz. I don't know if you remember. PlayStation had these games that had like a button, and it was like a character that has only mouth. It was a mouth that used to flap.
Okay.
It was like a super simple character,
Yeah.
and they asked me to do a test, and I did the test in Maya because they asked me like, it's fine in Maya, it's fine, even though we work in 3D Max. So
Oh, I see.
they said you can spend as much time as you want as long as it's high quality. So I spent about 2 weeks on it, and then I sent it over to them, and they're like, "This is great. You should come for an interview." Cool. I went for an interview. They were like super positive about it. I'm like, I think I got this. And then I came back home, and then they said, actually, no, we need you to do the test in 3D Max now.
Oh,
I'm like, but I told you guys from the beginning that I don't know 3D Max. I don't know how to animate in 3D Max. Like, no, we need to do it in 3D Max. So I did the
oh
test in
man.
3D Max, came out pretty poor. And then they went like,
Oh,
in that case, we don't need you. It's fine.
that's like
It
it's hard.
sucks.
You have to set expectation, right? And to have a
Exactly.
clear expectation
Yeah.
at the beginning.
Yeah. And this was before I got my first job in the industry. So you are so desperate to get your first job, right? That at that point in time, I didn't have anything to lose. So for me, it was like, I'm going to do the test
Yeah,
because if I don't do it, I'll like blaming myself for not doing the test and not getting the job because of it. So I prefer for them to be the ones saying no. That's kind of how I saw it, but he still stank.
yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
I came to a point where I have thought, the test is an opportunity to see what I can do for a certain limited time,
that's right.
or whatever the criteria is. And if I fail, and I fail, but I'll learn something from it,
That's
or at
right.
least
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to make like a positive spin out of it, right?
That's
Because
great, man.
sometimes you just have to look at the different angle.
Yeah,
So when a test comes, I'll like uh, I'll throw everything I have in that
that's
test,
it. That's it.
that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And
And,
sometimes
and
works, sometimes it doesn't.
sometimes he doesn't. And you know what? Like this is actually like a really good lesson that you're saying right now, Tim, because there is people out there that are not willing to do tests, especially after a
Yeah,
certain level when they are senior or mid level because they got a certain experience. They feel like I don't have to do a test for you because my experience should talk about for itself. But doing tests is actually a really good exercise, like you mentioned, right? Because it doesn't matter what level you are. If they ask you for a test, then it means that if you're confident in your skills, you'll just put your best foot forward and just do it. And then be like, okay, you guys want to test me out? Sure, no problem. Here it is.
yeah. I
Right.
guess I can see from like the super experienced people, it's like they already have such a milestone
Hmm.
already. and to ask them to do more of that, especially while they're also busy with a job. I can see like, why.
Yeah,
But I think it's up to the individual, right? To do it or
exactly.
not.
Yeah, it depends on the job that you're going for. It depends on
Yeah.
like the skill of the person. Like there's a bunch of like factors out there. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. So yeah, so now that Hades is out, right? Now that, I guess after so much work, you had some time to rest in between. Are you like now working on something new that you probably cannot talk about, or are you kind of like just like chilling, still relaxing after releasing such an amazing game?
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously I can't talk about it, but I am doing a lot of stuff outside. I'm always
Yeah,
doing something outside
that's cool.
to get better. But then it's also come to the point where, you hit a line, right? And if you keep pushing yourself so much, it may not be a good result in the long run.
Yeah,
So I've lately sort of learning more how to sort of take care of myself and have a balance between life and work, and that's super important. And I think it's a journey. So I'm still learning what's the best course to do, and but still like grow, but still evolve.
that's true. That's really cool. I'm guessing you're like exercising a lot, right? Like like to keep yourself like healthy and out there and your mind clear,
Yeah.
right?
I always have like, I think we all have like in on and off relationship. We're working out
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But I think like the past few or several months, it became a more of a big commitment for me.
yeah,
Um, uh, to for me now is to actually pursue it as a lifetime commitment, and it's not like a period of like, oh, you know what, I need to lose some weight for this year for some
yeah,
whatever reason. But
yeah.
for now, it's like the long run of having health
That's
is,
cool,
is
man.
important for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Because to me, like I know we're going off animation, but to me, like this COVID and the whole situation with the world kind of threw me off big time.
yeah,
And I feel like most people just went the way I went of like completely stopping and doing nothing, or the opposite way of like being extra fit because now you have time and you have a schedule because you're always at home. Yeah, for me, it's been pretty bad.
yeah, it's hard. I think it's hard for everyone because everybody have different ways to process it. In during 2020, I wasn't taking care of myself,
Right.
and the result of that was, an early 2021, I actually got sick, and
Mm,
that's why I decided to start getting more into the fitness stuff,
of
because
course.
when I was doing the fitness stuff, for some reason I was feeling better.
Of course.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is working. This
Yeah.
means I have to commit to this thing and see where it goes. And I have to say that it's been pretty rewarding in a lot of ways. To see like how far I can sort of push my body physically,
Yeah.
and because I'm pushing my body physically, but also the recovery and take care of yourself and the other stuff too.
Yeah.
My mental stage is also become more balanced,
Of
you
course.
could say. Because I
Yeah.
think for 2020, I didn't know what to do exactly to kind of release that stress out, right?
Yeah.
And then I think it was just like accumulated and kind of balled up to a certain point.
Yeah.
And okay, this is what I'm going to do to you now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a good journey. It's been enlightenment for me for sure.
That's great, man. That's really cool. Yeah, because like sometimes hard work and animation come together, clash, and if you're not careful, because animation is such an intense job all the time,
Yeah,
way
yeah.
too much. Right?
So this is kind of funny of a weird comparison between the two. We talk about animation take a long time to get better at, right?
Yeah.
And then it take a lot of commitment and effort to get good at what you're doing.
Yeah.
And for me, lately, I started doing running, and back in April, I was running like 1 mile a week, maybe skip another week, and
Yeah.
doing one, and then it was a 11-minute mile. So it took a long time to finish
Right.
1 mile miles. But then in at June, right after my birthday, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do 3 times a week 1 mile, and then I got to do 3 times a week 2 miles, and then now I can do 3 times a week 3 miles,
That's
and like
cool.
I can see the progression over time, and I
Yeah,
was like, whoa, this is cool. I didn't know I can go this far, and then it's also reminding me that, hey, animation will take time to get good at. So,
that's it,
you
man.
know, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
'Cause up until now, I still have certain, there's like a level of like self discipline that I have. Like I have a goal, and like I want to be good. It's been
Yeah.
like this many years, but I haven't gotten this good to this
I, s-
level that I
I
want yet.
see. Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're not quite there yet, right? You still want
Right.
to improve. You still want to raise. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Makes sense. And I guess exercise reminds you of that feeling of like
For sure.
improvement, which is really cool,
Yeah.
which is really awesome. So I think here we have like quite a few questions now, which is awesome. So here's something by Mark James Armour. Cool guy. Hello, Mark. Um, um, I see a lot of animation jobs that require mocap in the requirements section of the application. Do you recommend that students try to learn the mocap, I guess, how to clean mocap before getting a job? Yeah, you can go first in.
I think for what I've learned, I think people still look highly to hand key ability,
Mm,
right? And because if you understand hand key stuff, you can adapt and do the other stuff as well, the mocap stuff. And I think for me though, when I was kind of coming up, to supplement my hand key, the lack of hand keys, I was like, you know what, I need to learn some other stuff.
yeah,
So motion capture was part of it. And because I know that the long run, if I want to, let's say, get into like Supergiant Game, for example, I
yeah,
know there's a lot of mocap stuff. So it's just an advantage, right? And a little plus into what you can do.
yeah.
Along the line of that, I also started learning technical bit of it. So I
Mm,
learned rigging, even though I know that an animator we're not required to do rigging,
mm,
but I think is having a little technical skill also help. So I think it's just like depends. It also depends on what you want to do. You know.
yeah. Completely, completely. No, I agree. Like, from my experience, what happens is that mocap can be learned and can be learned in a very short period of time. Hand key, it takes a lifetime to learn. So if you actually become really good at hand key, you most likely, as soon as you learn mocap or how to clean up mocap, you'll probably start tweaking it and like pushing it to like a really nice standard. There is something like mocap. There is like a level of skill that is required. In the beginning, it looks very much like you just like basically cleaning up a few keys and then that's it, ship it. But there is such a thing as like making the mocap better. And then there is like different ranges of making the mocap better. There's like the Naughty Dog way of doing it that it still looks like mocap, but it's slightly pushed, right? And then there's like what Tin did in Hades, which is actually kind of like create mocap and then push it to like almost like hand key levels, which is also really cool, right? But you only get there by cleaning a lot of mocap and actually going through and
Yeah.
like tweaking the dials, right?
Uh, Sorry, I want to add one more thing too. Something about the mocap is when I learn how to do mocap, I'm less afraid of handling a lot of keys when I do
Yeah,
hand keys,
that's true.
right? Because
Yeah,
then in mocap it's like every single frame, right?
it's all keys. It's all keys.
Right. So it's like, okay,
Yeah,
you have no choice but to work with this. So then you come into your hand key, like, okay, this is not that bad. I can handle
yeah,
this stuff,
that's
right?
true.
So
That's
then
true.
it's like plus and
I completely agree. Yeah, I had so, somebody asked me like recently about like how do you actually kind of like create overlap in a mocap, right? If you have keys everywhere, how do you actually? But then you have to get into deleting keys. And everybody that I
yeah,
know of that started cleaning mocap, there's always a point that you clean up the mocap too much, so it like
yeah,
destroys the data, and it's a
right,
step that you have to take so you understand how much you have to can push things, right?
for sure.
It's just part of the journey.
Yeah, definitely is
uh,
always learning, always
Always
something to
learning,
learn.
man. um Jin asks if Hades is 2D or 3D. He plays 4 hours, but still not sure because of the art style. Jian is also a student of mine, really cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, my title is 3D animator, so it
yeah.
is a 3D animation, 3D, but it is rendered into 2D sprite,
To this
basically.
style, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, in all honesty, like the very first time that I saw it, I was like also squinting my eyes, going like, "No, this is 3D." But but I think you guys did such a good job with the shader to make sure that it all looks 2D, and because of the isometric view that you have
yeah,
as well, it just makes it like sing. Like the style is so cool.
yeah. Jen is amazing, as I know.
Jen, is that
Everybody is amazing.
it's Supergiant? Yeah, I can imagine. Like you can only have like like a few more people, but everybody is super talented,
Yeah, and
right?
super passionate for sure.
That is amazing. Also, the VFX. The VFX, they like surely once you saw your animations with VFX and audio on top, you must have like there must have been moments that must have been like, wow, this is insane.
Yeah, it adds to it a lot. Josh is a magician. I've done a fair share of VFX or special effects 2D stuff back in the Flash day.
Yeah,
I'm not like super artisty or anything like that. And I've done particle stuff too, but like Josh just bring it to the next level. It
it's
looks so
just
good.
yeah, yeah. I'm always amazed whenever they put like animations, sounds to it, or in
Yeah.
VFX as well. Like all of a sudden, it just makes your animations, even if the animation is not that great, they can be masked by how amazing the sound and the VFX
Yes,
are,
for sure.
right?
It definitely enhances a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I made animations that are literally just this and then that, but just because of the VFX and the sound, all of a sudden it's like, wow, that was a cool animation. I'm
Nice.
like, nope, that
That's
was a really
team
bad
effort.
animation. But it's just
No, that
like
was team effort.
the
Yeah.
guys actually made it saying exactly.
Everybody put in a little piece,
Little
and then
piece,
the whole
yeah.
thing looked amazing.
That is the beauty of games. It's just like
Yeah,
that, like the how much of a team sport it is, right?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, by the way, major congrats to Mark. He got an A in his assessments at uni.
Nice,
Really cool.
congratulations.
Glad to help. Um, yeah. So let me just see if there's anything else. The timetable for a 2-minute shot. Oh, I see.
What happened?
That's more for VFX, actually. Oh, here it is. I think this is a good one for you. When jumping in a new project, what steps do you take to adapt to your animation to the style of the game? And I think because you came from like a 2D sprite background to a 3D for the first time in Supergiant, like how difficult it was for you to adapt to the style.
Well, Supergiant wasn't my first 3D job.
Oh, it wasn't? Sorry.
Right, yeah, no
Yeah.
worries. It's but it actually wasn't defined the animation style yet when I came in,
Okay.
because the team wanted to have it a certain look. So I basically worked with the team and sort of cater to that look for
Right.
what they were looking for. But I know that every time you jump to the project, it does take some time to adapt to styles, and you look at how it was done before, in game and also in Maya, of course, and you try to replicate it, right? Especially you're going to jump to the new project. But for me, it wasn't like a free slate to start everything new, but it was like, how can I cater and move this styles into something that all the team member wanted.
That makes a lot of sense. So were you part of the definition of the style when you all got there? Did you actually kind of like help them find that style of Hades that was different from other Supergiant games before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was coming in, I just had to try out different things to see what the team liked,
Cool.
and especially like the idea of it. We trying to, or at least I try to put it more like grounded animation, so it's not
Yeah.
a lot of super magical stuff or cartoony stuff in there.
Right.
Yeah.
That is cool, man. That is really cool. So what was the moment? Because there must have been like a moment or a few moments that the team must have seen that animation that you've done and be like, "Damn, that was it. That works."
That's I don't remember exactly, but I think maybe part of it was started with the miniature enthusiast fight.
Oh, I see.
That was the first time that I had to do two bosses at the same time, kind
Right.
of thing. Uh, and to figure that part out, and and then show it to the team, and it's like, oh, this is working. This is
Yeah.
I think this is kind of like what we can move forward with, kind of thing.
Cool. That's really, really nice. It must have been super satisfying for you to hear that, especially given that is the first like a game and like job like in this kind of scale. It must have been super satisfying to actually kind of be like, yeah, this is working. Let me keep going with this.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really nice. So I think that do you mind if I actually bring your showreel or like the page that you have, like just like a few animations, not very many from the beginning,
Sure.
just
Yeah.
for the start. So I have, because I have to show the guys just for the ones that actually haven't played. They haven't played Hades. Just where they actually. This is your website, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and just what kind of things they can actually see in game, and
Well,
give me.
all the Hades animation, all of the stuff are in games.
They're all in
Uh,
game, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just gonna like go here just to show them. And you mentioned before that this was mocap that was actually changed, right? Like tweaked.
Yeah, so the blue circle are mocap, and the red circle are hand keys, and
Okay,
then like mocap is and hand key to master styles. I have to like clean the crap out of it, right?
that's
So
amazing.
it, yeah, so it's like a mixture of both hand key and mocap
Mixer,
and some of those
Heineke and
animations.
mocap. Yeah, but it just works so well, especially given like the view and how it is and how snappy it is. It's great. So, like, because you are the only animator and you have to create so many assets, how much time do you have, like, on average, to kind of create an animation?
Uh, Usually pretty fast, I would
Pretty
say.
fast, right?
Yeah, pretty fast. So a lot of time I'll have time to maybe present one or two block animation, but then I'll have to keep kind of move along, kind of thing.
Right.
I love to be able to show more prototype and more block animation, because
It's
to
the most
me,
fun. Right.
yeah, and part of it to me is like, if there are better choices and we can see which one is it, in general, it would be good for the game, right?
For
But
sure.
like, in game development, a lot of time you don't have the time to do it, and especially because I'm the only animator, so
Yeah.
you have to keep along, yeah, keep moving.
Makes sense. Makes complete sense. No, this is brilliant, man. This is really, really cool. So, like, the process that you had, was it mostly like prototyping and then doing the final animation, or like after a certain point you actually got so good at basically knowing what people wanted that you just go straight to final?
um there I got to a certain point where the team trusts me to do the animation,
Of
but
course.
there, when I do have time, I do like to show the block animation, which is different ideas,
Yeah.
because to me it's like, in the long run, if that somehow didn't work out, I'll have to rework it. So
Of
if I
course.
can present the idea there and then everybody agree, then that's the way to go, and I don't have to rework it for later.
Yeah.
I kind of always kind of like thinking about that kind of stuff, for sure.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So here's a question from Omkar that asks about studio tests. What mistakes should we avoid while animating? Like, I submitted a shot for a studio recently, but I felt like I could have done more. You wanna go first?
You can go ahead first, Harvey. I
Yeah.
think you have a good answer for it.
So I think the best thing that you can do with a studio tests is basically ask as many questions as possible. So, like, a lot of studios have from my experience, there's two types of tests. There's the generic one that is a package that gets sent to every single animator that they actually hire. So it's part of their hiring process. But then there's the second one where they send tests to a specific animator. And that is mostly for juniors or people that don't have a lot of experience. So they kind of like send the test. Normally, these tests can be a bit more detailed or have more information. So you, as the animator that actually needs to do the animation, you need as much information as possible about how long does it take, how much detail can you go into, what's the end result that they're looking for in terms of like, do they want to see like timing or spacing or anything that actually can give you. A lot of studios in AAA studios, they can be hard in terms of like, do it, that's it, you have 7 days, boom, that's it, done. But if you can get as much information as possible, do it. If you can't get information, then look at the studio that you're applying for and ask you for the test and look at what they're working on. Because whatever they're working on, that is the level that you have to hit. Because what they're looking for is to hire somebody that can hit the ground running. So whenever you submit that test, they can look at your work and be like, okay, Omkar can actually do this animation and do it at the same level as the animators here. Therefore, we're going to hire him, right? So if you can actually kind of go that way, I think you're going to be in a good place. Yeah, you want to add anything, Tin?
Yeah, for me, to follow up too is plan out what you're going to do. I think that was one of the bigger pitfall for me when I first started, that I didn't really plan out that well, and it's obviously it show up in the animation.
Yeah.
But if you spend some time to plan it out and know what you want to do, that helps a lot. And this is my own learning is sometimes if you can get super passionate about something, you might like overdo it. So it could be good and bad, right?
Good and
if
bad,
you do it, overdo it, but then it's good animation, then it's positive. But if you overdo it, but the animation was bad, it's like you kind of, I guess not like, I wouldn't say like losing the time you spent on it, because essentially you're still doing something. So still kind of some kind of training you did there.
Yeah.
But if you can focus on the quality of it instead of the quantity, I think that would be better.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because a lot of the time when a big studio asks you for a test, sometimes you feel like you need to impress them a lot. And sometimes they're not looking so much for the shot that impresses them a lot. They're just looking for you to follow the rules that is stipulated in the demo. That's it. Instead of you going like, I've done 2 minutes of animation, even though you're asking for like, 20 frames.
I had trouble with those for sure.
Right. Like, exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's another story to tell.
Another story for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but a good question though. Good question. I hope that helps. So here's another good question from Mark to you, I think. Do you feel like having experience in both sprite and 3D animation is beneficial? He's been working in 2D for a couple of months now, and he fears he might get rusty in Maya.
For working at Supergiant, 100%. Coming in knowing, like, have the background of being sprite and all that stuff helped a lot. There was like kind of share experience I can bring into it. I think I understand the part where you get rusty in Maya if you were focusing on the other part. When I was doing the 2D puppet animator, I thought I knew animation. I did not. When I started 3D, because you have to work in so many different axes, and you have this 360
rotate
stuff.
The camera. Yeah.
Right. There's so much stuff into it. I'm like, wow, man, I did not know animation.
Yeah.
And that was a good, a good call for me to actually really trying to understand, the 3D part of it. But having said that, I know that, having 2D skill can also benefit you. I think one of them is, one of the things I started doing a lot more lately is when I do an animation, I'll draw over my own animation, just sort of giving myself critiques, because I don't have, somebody to help me critique my own stuff, right? So that's what I do. I even though I'm not like an amazing 2D artist or anything, but I can draw stick figures and stuff like that. And I know what to kind of look for, I guess, to kind of try to push the post a little bit further. And so it definitely helped.
That's great. That's a good. That's a great answer. Like I haven't really been working in 2D at all throughout my career. I've dabbled in my spare time, but
You were illustrator before, right?
I was in Illustrator before, yes.
Yeah.
But sadly, when I started animating, I made the bad decision to not illustrate until I became a good animator, and then I never did. So I should have continued at some point, and I haven't.
I think it's hard to, because we want to do, many things as possible, but it's hard
Yeah,
to get good at those multiple things because you only have enough time to kind of put into the craft, right?
that's true.
Uh, I think for me, like before, as a 2D animator guy, I was kind of doing multiple things because a lot of time I'm in a situation where I'm like the only animators or, one of
Yeah,
the few kind of thing. So I learned to do VFX and particle effects and all the other stuff. But in the end, my actual skills, bread and butter, animation
yeah,
and suffer, right? And same thing when I switched over to 3D, I was learning modeling as well, and
yeah.
a little bit texturing besides rigging part, technical part. And I realized that I don't have time to actually put into enough effort to
That's
be
it.
good at these things. So I have to focus on something that is my bread and butter. So that's animation. And
Yeah,
then what else can supplement to it? And that supplementation is technical skill. So it's rigging help,
that's right.
right? I think
Yeah.
one of my big one right now is to get better at the three engine stuff.
Okay,
Um,
implementation.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
for 3D engine specifically, right? To get more understanding of that.
Oh, I see, I see. Yeah, no, like I completely agree. It's difficult because it's like I think we all have like all animators that are like that are good at their craft. I think they have a good eye for, silhouette and good posing and what makes an appealing animation and posing and all that stuff, right? So I'm kind of thankful that I actually spent 10 years doing illustration because that actually kind of like got me kind of like fused in my mind what I
Yeah,
think to me as an artist was a good pose because I was
that's
doing
awesome.
comics. But yeah, you're right. Like doing multiple things at the same time kind of like distracts from the stuff that you're doing. And to me, animation was everything. So I had to kind of become good at it in order to actually, it's like you were saying before, like at some point in your life, you have to decide what do you want to do and
Right.
how you're going to earn money doing what you want to do. And
Yeah. Yeah.
if it is it, then you just grab all your chips and you put it in one place, and then you just hope for the best that it works out. And for me, it was animation. It was like, okay, my chips are all in. This needs to work out, otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and it worked out for you, and you're doing really amazing right now, and you're giving back to the community, and
thanks, man.
really being inspiration for sure.
Thanks, man.
Um,
Like, no, it's really cool to actually see people like like yourself and like uh, to me, games and animation are like go together like this. So seeing somebody like you that came from outside of games to then come into games and do a job like this in Hades, and then have it be like a super multi-award winning game, I think that must boost your confidence as an animator, as an artist, in order to actually do more big things going forward, right?
I definitely have goals to get, to keep evolving, to get better for sure. Having confidence, that is something I'm still working on.
Oh yeah,
I think part of it because I felt like I started 3D a little late in my life.
right.
But I know that you need to learn to sort of let go of the past, right? It's like,
Yeah,
okay, this is just focus on the present, and I know that I have a goal to keep continue to learn to get better,
yeah.
and
Like I think here's a triple A perspective for you, Tin, because I feel like because you haven't maybe worked on triple A yet, just yet, right?
not
I
yet,
don't, not
not
yet.
yet.
I think you're missing that piece, but you're actually doing much more than an animator does in triple A. And you are not only seeing more, but you're actually being much more creative than an animator in AAA. And I'm pretty sure my fellow developers that are watching this can agree with this, because what happens when you go to a AAA studio, as awesome as it is, you get put like in a little box, and most of the time what you're doing is just creating that content, but you don't really have a saying on the style of the animation, on how things should work, or anything that you've done in Hades, right?
Right.
And the fact that you did all that and it worked, that's the most important thing. And it worked, right? Because people could actually look at this game and be amazed by the gameplay, but not say nothing about any of the animations. But the amount of people that I heard saying great things about this game and the animations of Hades, right? So that means that it worked. And that's really cool, because it means that you're doing much more than somebody in AAA, having a much bigger saying. And it means that you're actually a much more fulfilled artist as a result, right? So I think you should give a massive pat on your back, because you have it going on for sure.
Right. I appreciate it, Harvey.
Yeah,
This is quote I really liked about one of your video. I think it was a humility video. And you said you can only do your best and hope that others can see your greatness.
That's
And
it.
I thought that was such a cool quote. And it's definitely what I'm feeling lately. Even though sometimes I may not have the full confidence, but I see that others are seeing the work and like they think this is good
For
work.
sure, man. Well, you have a fan here, so
Oh, thanks so
it's
much.
all
I
good,
appreciate
man.
it.
For
Same
sure.
here. Same here, Harvey.
Yeah. Thanks, man. No, but yeah, like keep going, man. Keep going. Because what I found through my journey is that like AAA is really cool, but then like after a certain point, you want to create. Like I think we all creative, right? We all
Yeah.
want to create. So when you actually go to a studio, especially if it's a big studio, and then you actually work there, and you know that it's going to be the same thing year after year, doesn't matter how many games come out, right? It feels very much repetitive, even though you actually kind of like churning out great games that look great on your CV. You're not really being creative. So what happens, people like myself, and I know a bunch of people that are like me, after 15, 20, 30 years, they just want to actually work in a studio that is perhaps smaller, but they can actually have a saying on the creativity of what gets done in animation, art, whatever, music. And you're already there in Supergiant, right? So you started the correct way. Anything that you do this, anything that you do after this is just going to be like, I think it's going to make you appreciate how much creativity you have here, which is pretty cool.
For sure. I'm fortunate and lucky.
Yeah, exactly. Massive shout out to everybody at Supergiant. You guys are doing an amazing job.
For sure. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, they are really cool. So let me see. Oh yeah, here's a good question about games. Jean is asking, when we learn animation is on 24 frames per second, but since in games is 30 and 60 and unlocks FPS, yeah, do you need to change the default settings when you make animations? Do you not answer that one, or you want me to answer it? That's a good question, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can go ahead with that one.
Yeah.
I think I have a shorter one. Yeah.
Sure. So what happens is that in Maya, you animate in games 9 times out of 10, you animate at 30 frames per second in Maya. There's a few studios that I worked on, there was 60, but mostly as 30. And what happens is that when you export that animation into game, so it goes from Maya to Unreal, or Maya to Frostbite, or whatever engine it is, like the frame rate gets doubled. So then you get 60 frames per second because it gets interpolated. So that's kind of like how it works most of the time. The game that I worked on, it was actually 60 in Maya and 60 in engine, was actually more true to form. But now with caching, even if you animate at 30, you get like a very close to realistic animation. So that's kind of how it works. For the games that you can unlock FPS and do more than 60, is all interpolation. So all the smooth frames that you're seeing is interpolation that made by the engine itself. So the engine just needs to actually have that information of getting the animation at 30 frames, at 30 FPS. Everything that happens in between is just like smoothing of stuff, especially in first-person shooters.
So my experience, with Hades stuff is that because we're the animation output is bright, right? So then I have to think about the limitation of the frames. So a lot of the time, most enemies and everything else are 30 frames per second. But for the main character, he's actually 60 frames per second.
Oh, nice.
So I actually animated him in 60 frames per second, and then switched back to animating the other characters in 30
That's
frames
30 frames per second. That's great.
Right.
Yeah, because the accuracy is bigger, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes complete sense. Yeah,
it will throw you off though.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Do you animate in Maya and then you export it in sprites? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
So what you get is like frames,
right,
of the animation, and then you have to implement that in engine.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting, actually. I never worked that way, but it must be super interesting. So no FBXs, right? No, nothing like that.
There is. It's still like, read as either 30 images. Let's say if I have a 2-second animation of 30 frames per second, you still have like 60 frames of animation.
Of course, yeah.
And if the main characters have 2 seconds, that's like 120 frames of animation per
second.
right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Makes sense. So someone asks here as well, if you actually have, like, if you're still working on stuff outside, like it feels like you can learn so many skills in the industry. Do you have a point where you decided to really focus on animation and like neglect other areas, or do you still like learning other things? You mentioned that you actually work at home on your own projects, right?
Right.
Yeah. Maybe you can talk a little bit about those if they are interesting and exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also come down to your own curiosity, I guess, and goal too, right? And I was having a lot of curiosity of other things, and for me, part of it is to understand the other department, to see how do they do what they do, right? So for rigging in general, I know it can be pretty daunting for artists to learn rigging, but the goal for learning rigging to understanding what kind of problem they have to deal with. But then when I learned enough of it, it helped me to sort of figure out what issues that could happening during the animation of the rig. So if I have a rigger, then I can just like point it out without having to like, troubleshoot and stuff like that, send him back like, hey, something wrong, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But then I would know. So then that would kind of like keep the flow going. So limiting the bottleneck part, right?
Yeah.
So that's always like that's the benefit of it. But then, for me, it was just, I was curious. I wanted to learn more of it. Yeah. And then I found the use of it that benefit for me and my job.
That's great. Like, and that actually takes us to this other point of like, when you work in games, you really need to know what the other departments are doing, especially departments that come before you, like design, and departments that come after you, like code or audio, like that's after animation. If you understand what they're trying to do, then you're actually going to piss them off less.
Yes.
Because what happens is, like, in games, the pipelines are not linear. It's just things just get dumped into an engine, and then eventually just kind of like a game comes out. But like they don't come in the same times most of the time. So you have to know how audio works and how other departments work, so animation can fit and slot in perfectly in between and be exactly how they expect it. So it really helps. So, which is great. Yeah. Also helps if you actually want to become a director in the future, I can say. Because
for sure.
Because the job of a director is to know all the moving parts and being able to feedback on like, this doesn't work, but this works, and this is why it works. So if you do it this way, it's going to be better for these reasons. It comes with experience, obviously, but like it helps a lot to know the intricacies of how to make a game. It's really cool.
100%. Yeah, I've worked with director. Shout out to Polly. He's amazing. He was the first 3D animation director that I met and became my mentor.
Cool.
But at the time, I was a 2D guy. He was a 3D guy, so I couldn't really learn a lot of 3D stuff from him.
Right.
But what I learned from him was like his understanding of the whole 3D pipeline. He
Yeah.
know everything about it, the entirety of it,
That's
and
it.
it really helped him to do his job.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess for me it's like when I first thought about like the long term career, I did thought about like director stuff,
Hmm.
and for me over the year, I realized that you need to learn to follow first in
Yes.
order to and to actually learn all the stuff first before
Yeah.
you actually become that position
A
to
hundred
do that
percent.
job. Yeah,
A
kind
hundred
of like
percent,
the
man.
whole work hard and work smart thing. You
That's
don't
it.
know it and you jump right into it, right?
Yeah. And you know what's funny, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna happen to you as well at some point in. Is like when it happens to you, like someone comes to you, either a Supergiant or another studio, and be like, "Would you like to be our lead animator, or like animation director, or whatever?" Right? Most likely, if you're anything like me, it will happen not because you want to, but because it's the right time to do it. Which is bizarre though, because like I actually never thought I was going to be a lead or a director ever, because I
Yeah,
thought all the time that I would just want to become the best animator ever. And if I become a lead or a director, that's distracting from the animation, just like illustration, just like that's distracting from the craft. But what I found out through the journey is that like helping others is bigger than animation. It's like when you start to be a lead and people like you start kind of like saying to people like, let's do it this way, guys, and then it works and the game comes out and it's actually good. It's really, really satisfying. And as a director, it's kind of like the same thing is happening, but just in a bigger scale.
yeah,
And you kind of like realize that if you want to see the best animations possible, and if you actually want to have a saying on the whole thing, especially if it's a big game, the only way you can do it is by being a director and having an amazing team. And not doing it because you have a title, but doing it because you just want the best damn animations ever.
yeah.
Right?
And sometime the best person to do his job necessarily who won it first, right? You just happen to like adapt it, and you become that person,
You
and you
become
were
that
meant to be
person.
that person, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I started like this new role, I genuinely felt like that imposter syndrome was creeping back, and I had to shake it really hard.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
I
like it
know that.
feels.
I
Yeah,
know that syndrome.
exactly, exactly. It feels, yeah, it feels like because you're having such big decisions and talking with so many people and all that stuff, it feels weird. But yeah, after a while you settle into it, and then things start to work out. And it's just like probably like you in this job, when you started working in Hades and you started doing one animation and another animation and not knowing exactly where to go. I'm pretty sure at some point you just clicked and you're like, you know what, I feel
Yeah,
like I got this, and you just go with it.
things fall into place for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly, man. And it's a good feeling, right? To know that like it's not even like a thing about like, am I going to lose my job? It's more like I'm good at this almost, right? Like I feel like, I mean, obviously you cannot say that out loud, but internally to feel like I think I can do this well, in a good
Yeah.
way. It feels good. It feels like, maybe this is the career that you meant to do.
I must say I love animation. Working as a game animator is so amazing, and it's hard to think like what else I would be doing if I'm not doing this right now.
That's
I know
great.
that you would probably feel the same way, and then a lot of people
Yeah.
who work in the industry feel the same way as well.
For sure, man. But we're super lucky. We're super lucky to be in the industry, and even on the days that this feels like a job, and it feels like somebody's like, I don't know, just looked at you badly or talked to you badly or whatever, didn't give you like feedback that you wanted. Um, like even on those days, it feels very much like when you look back at your jobs that you had before, when you said in the
Oh yeah.
beginning, right? Like you kind of think about it and you kind of go, do I really want to go back to that freezer?
Actually, hell
Is
no,
this really that
hell
bad?
no. Not
Right.
compared to that, not at all, not at all,
Exactly.
man.
Yeah, man.
They're
So
definitely a hard day, but it's better than being in that freezer for sure.
exactly,
With
man. So
frozen snot.
yeah. So yeah, to me, that's kind of how it goes. Like the days that I have bad, I'm like, I kind of go like, is it really that bad? It's bad as like, do I prefer to actually work at McDonald's flipping burgers, or prefer to kind of
Yeah.
like be, I don't know, doing whatever. So yeah, man, it's really cool. So Tin, like now that we've been talking for a while now, what is next for Tin?
Yeah, like I said before, just continue learning, continue to evolve, and to keep that humility like you were talking about.
Yeah,
I connect a lot with the stuff that you're talking about because I appreciate that you're being truthful, and and
yeah,
certain things are you brought out, or there's certain vulnerable moment. I think it's great coming from leadership to be able to share that kind of stuff.
yeah.
But for me to keep growing to be a better person, but also a better teammate who people can rely on. That's really my goal. Continue work on a cool project, working with really cool people.
That's great, man. That's really cool. It sounds like you're happy where you are. It sounds like you're happy with your life. It sounds like life is good right now.
I think it certainly takes some time to learn, for sure.
Right.
Even though like I went through all the hardship, sometimes it can bog you down, right? And so it's like you relearn things. You work through the hardship, and you kind of forgot that moment, and then you go through another hardship, and
That's it.
it is good to kind of just stop and think about like, oh, I went
It's
through this
like
before,
it's like peaks
right?
and troughs, right? Yeah,
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 yeah. So
completely.
it's just saying that, hey, it's okay. It's this is normal, and once you get over that hump, it will be good for a while.
And it's just
So
it's life, right?
yeah, keep putting your foot in front of the other and keep moving forward. That's the best you
Moving
can do.
forward. 100%, man. 100%. Um, hello to Patricia from Uganda. Really cool to see somebody from the motherland. Uh, um, uh, Mark has a question here. Do I enjoy directing? Uh, Doing multiple things seems more appealing than animating. So I think Teen was right. Like I've spent 15 years now, more than 15 years now, like in the games industry. And I had the same feeling that you had about like learning from others and absorbing as many things as I could. And it felt really good. It felt like the humility takes you to a much better place faster. And I feel like that was my motto throughout the 15 years. Like even when I found people, and I found so many people that were more talented than me till this day, always learning from them. Be like, how do you do it, man? It's just like, but what's the secret? Like, how teach me? That was always like my motto going through the industry. Directing, it is enjoyable to actually do multiple things. Um, it is a lot of things, though. A game is incredibly difficult because there's so many things that you have to think about all the time. And it's more difficult in the role that I am at the moment because I'm in a new studio and nothing has been done, right? So here's something that happens when you work in a AAA studio. So if you work in Battlefield, for example, or Crisis, or I don't know, Warhammer, Total War Warhammer. They've been doing this for so long, for so many years, that they have systems and production and pipelines and all that stuff is already been set for years and years and years before you started. So when you start, everything is pretty much done. You're just changing the formula a little bit because it's a new game. So then you do it. This way that I'm doing it right now is the most difficult way possible because nothing is done. You have to do everything from scratch, like nothing. But that's what pays off in the end because if it works out and everything goes well and we come up with this game and I'm sure it's going to be special. Everything that we did it ourselves. And was what Tim was saying, like hard work. Like nothing is truly easy. You just like go through some good stuff and bad stuff, good stuff and bad stuff. And directing is kind of like that. You kind of hope that everything works out in the end. But I have an amazing team, like superb team. So um, loving directing so far is really cool. So I would recommend it if you like to try it in.
Give me 5 to 10 more years. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, you'll be there. You'll be there, man. Like you have the right attitude, man. This is the like I feel like you have that attitude that you are there for others, right? You are
I
there for a team.
Yeah, for sure. And I see that from seeing it actually happen, right? From my leadership,
Yeah,
from the guy that I looked up to, because obviously throughout career that we can see all type of different leads and how they lead and stuff like
yeah.
that. And with Paul, the way that he was leading people is exactly how I want to lead. Because
Perfect.
yeah, treat
Yeah.
people like how you would like to be treated, right?
Exactly, man. Exactly. And like the other thing that is interesting is that under pressure, people sometimes crack, right? I feel like it's more difficult for you to crack when you have backgrounds like you mentioned, that you have a lot of pressure, a lot of for no pay, right? Like as you mentioned, like going up in rank was going from like stacking boxes to working on a freezer, right? That
Yeah.
looking back, that's not much of a pay rise of but I think people like that have been through hardships is more difficult to crack under pressure, but still a lot of people crack under pressure because this industry is like super stressful. um, Especially when you're about to release a game, people just have a tendency to crack.
Yeah.
But like as long as you see this as just this is bigger than a game, that people teaching people right the right way is the best way for you to make an impact in the long run. It's the best way, man, because what happens is that before I'm old enough to know, like before you had a box, like a boxed CD or DVD or Blu-ray that you could point at and be like, I worked on this. This is the game that I worked on. And it had a physical thing. That's it. So that was like 5 years or 3 years or whatever of development. And the only thing you had was basically this box that you could show your friends and be like, this game? I worked on it.
Yeah.
What do you think? That's it. That's all
You
you
like
could
to
do.
carry that everywhere you go.
Yeah, exactly. Just put it out of my pocket. Yeah, here. This is the game. But all that to say that, like, people forget easy, right? The game comes out, you worked in a game, was a big thing, and then you can point at it and like, I did this thing, great. But while the development of the game is happening, it feels like the biggest thing in the world. And sometimes people lose sight of it and they become a bit douchey, and then people just like snap at each other, and that's like, it's just like it's not worth it, really. Like
Yeah.
being decent, being human, just like treating people with respect even through like difficult times is the best way to go about it, man, because
Yeah.
it's a long
That's
time.
why I think, with leadership who show that kind of compassion and understanding is because they went through it before,
Yeah,
and over and over and over, and see how many years they've been through it.
yeah.
So they have that kind of understanding. And I think this is from one of your videos too, is to develop that kind of thick skin, right?
Well, for
To be
sure,
able
man.
to handle this kind of pressure, that
Yeah,
kind of, especially for director, because you have direction thrown at you everywhere. And
everywhere.
then, yeah,
Yeah,
from the top to the bottom, it's definitely take really special people to be able to do it and do it correctly and do it right.
and do it the right way. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. i
Yeah.
think i think people like that are like, yeah, I've met a few, and I look up to them till this day, because being under pressure, especially when you have a big team. I had this boss called Tony Jackson. Shout out to Tony Jackson if he's watching this. He was like one of my best bosses that I've had, and he used to shield the team from all the stress coming from up top. And we remember seeing him stressed out,
Oh
like
man.
balling out, almost like super stressed because the pressure was too much. And we'd ask him just like, can we help you with anything? Because he was just a nice guy. Be like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's for me to deal with. You guys just keep animating. Just have fun, no problem. Right?
Man.
And it takes a lot to be that person. You know
For
what I mean?
sure.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot. Anyways, sorry, going back to you, Tin. um, Omkar asks, which martial art or style did you refer to for an action animation for Hades? Or was
Okay,
it
martial
100%
art.
you?
That's that was
Was it you?
a lot of time with a lot of time with me. Yes, that wasn't a particular martial art, but I do look up a lot of you know different style and whatnot. But in particularly looking at people who actually doing that stuff, you see what their body language is like, because it's like, okay, I can throw a punch, but if a real boxer throw a punch, how would that look like?
That's it.
That kind of things.
Yeah.
So it's definitely reference, always really good stuff to fall back into.
That's great. You should do it behind the scenes with your reference for Hades.
Yeah, you remember? So at the end of Hades, when you introduced to Hades, right? He turned around with his cape, and I have a reference videos where I was wearing a bed sheet, and I turned around and he's like, "Yeah, it's me. I'm Hades." that was my reference video.
Amazing. That's so cool. Yeah, no, but that's really cool, man. I think that's it, man. Like I spent an hour and a half of your time, Tin, and
Awesome,
I know you have better things to do. So I highly appreciate you taking the time and chatting with me and answering these questions and sharing your experience. Highly appreciate it.
Yeah,
man.
thank you so much for inviting me up here. For sure, I appreciate what you're doing. Like I said before, you're an inspiration, man.
Thank you,
And
man.
keep doing what you're doing. I'm gonna try to support you because I think it's really important to have this kind of channel. Like I wish, like I said when I was coming up, to have this kind of resource to look at.
Thanks.
So keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. That's exactly why I do it. It's because I wish I had this kind of stuff before. Because sometimes you get into this industry and you think it's all roses and petals and gold. It's going to be amazing.
No.
And then you start and you're like,
Hey,
this is nothing like I was promised.
I think some might have experience like that. Let's say it's like
Maybe.
a really super talented person who can just adapt everything so quickly and being able to connect with everyone so easily. Who knows? Maybe there's like one in a million.
They are unicorns. They are for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for most of us, it's not that way. So this is why I did this is why I started the channel. Because for people that are normal like us, like we have to struggle and we have to go through it and spend years and years going through the struggle until we see the light. So, I'm glad it's helping out. And thanks a lot for watching, man.
Thank you, Harvey. Appreciate
no problem. Cool. Anyways, to everybody in the chat, thanks very much for showing up, everybody. Thanks for all the questions. Really, really cool. And Tin, keep on doing amazing things. I feel like whatever you're working next is going to be amazing.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Harvey.
And I'll be on the lookout for it for sure.
Same here. I will follow you and see what you're doing.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Take care.
See you guys later. Bye-bye.